And you're very welcome to another edition of the programme. Today we're coming to you from the village of Dunlavin in the county of Wicklow. Because it's well established that if you suffer a heart attack, for instance, well, the sooner you get medical help, the better your chances of survival. However, those of us who live in rural Ireland are well aware that it can take half an hour or more for the emergency services to reach you, and meanwhile, well, time and your very life could be ticking away. But here in Dunlavin, they've come up with a solution.
This ambulance control centre in Naas serves Kildare and West Wicklow. East County Wicklow is served by another control centre in Wicklow Town.
And what's your location? What's your address there, please? Main Street, Dunlavin, beside the library. Okay.
When a call for an emergency ambulance comes into either centre, there's a different response if it comes from one of 23 designated villages and towns across County Wicklow. Areas which have groups of what are called first responders.
We'll have somebody with you shortly, but in the meantime we'll be sending out a first responder to the scene to you there. They'll be with you there before the ambulance. Go along that side.
A first responder is the local volunteer who's been trained by the ambulance service. Dunlavin has a first responder group.
Dunlavin first responder, John speaking.
How you doing? Ambulance Control, Nice here. Call for you there, a collapse case next to the library in Main Street, Dunlavin.
On my way, ETA about 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
John O'Reilly's a Dunlavin builder, and he can get to the collapse scene almost immediately. As one of Dunlavin's first responders, he's been trained to give pre-hospital emergency care to heart attack victims. It will take the ambulance about 20 minutes to get to Dunlavin.
Time is of immense importance in cardiac problems. Patients suffering from cardiac arrest or indeed heart attack need help as soon as possible. That's why having first responders available to the ambulance service is such an enormous benefit to those people suffering those problems.
Hello, can you hear me?
In this simulated scene, the patient has had a cardiac arrest. But in all collapse cases, there's a set procedure which the first responder has to go through to determine what exactly the problem is.
In a heart attack, a patient is suffering from a blockage in the blood vessel that supplies their heart. Our first responders will treat them with high concentrations of oxygen. In our simulated event, the patient had suffered a cardiac arrest where their heart wasn't pumping blood effectively. Early defibrillation is undoubtedly the most important intervention in that case.
And back at the simulated collapse scene, the defibrillator is about to be used.
Stand clear. Press flashing shock button.
Shocking now.
Shock 1 delivered.
How is he, John? How's he responding?
We're doing our best for him. We're doing our best.
Stand clear.
It's only in Wicklow that a link between the ambulance service and volunteers exists. The scheme was born because of a number of tragic deaths.
Do not touch the patient.
My father died suddenly at a football game some years ago. He and others who died similarly could have been saved if defibrillators were available. A small group and I set about making these available in County Wicklow. Fortunately, our voluntary group linked up with the ambulance service, and now we have a facility that's growing rapidly in the county.
Billy Timmins began arranging meetings to recruit volunteers, and the scheme now covers 23 centres across County Wicklow. John Fitzgerald was one of the first volunteers in Dunlavin. He joined for a mixture of reasons.
I've had 4 relatives who've died from heart problems. Another 2 have suffered serious heart attacks. I am very aware of the problem of heart disease in my family. First responders is a way of tackling this problem, and that's why I'm in it.
To make sure volunteers keep their skills, there's ongoing training for them, and John is now trained as a trainer. Volunteers are on duty for one 12-hour period every 2 weeks. Margaret Lynett has been a volunteer for nearly a year.
We've oxygen, we've various different masks, we've a suction device, we've the defibrillator, and most importantly, emergency telephone.
What's the tension like waiting for a call?
I suppose it's a bit nerve-wracking, but we've been well trained and I feel we'd be very competent to deal with any situation that we're called out to.
How you doing? Just continue what you're doing, good man.
Back at the scene of the simulated incident, the ambulance crew has arrived.
As long as the patient down? 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Good stuff.
The professionals are about to take over.
6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000, 9 1,000, 10 1,000. Confirm cardiac arrest, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10.
Can we contact anyone for you, or...?
If another first responder is needed, there's always one available. This can be a very difficult time for relatives.
Stand clear. And shot. Change your rhythm.
Palpable pulse, checking breathing.
For the ambulance crews, this is almost routine work. For the first responders, it isn't.
Actually, when you're doing it, you're more or less on an automatic pilot, as it was. All your training comes into being, and the training we've done have helped us a lot. Having said that, it is very daunting, and when the phone rings, the hair will stand on the back of your neck and you will get fairly anxious.
We have a dial. You turn it up to 15 litres per minute. You take the mask, you press the valve and inflate the bag and push it on the patient.
Training happens one night a month, and every volunteer has to be assessed every 3 months by the ambulance service. Here in Dunlavin, the group raised €6,000 from local contributions to buy its 2 defibrillators, and across Wicklow, the other first responder groups did the same. The ambulance service meets ongoing costs and supplies any extra equipment needed. The call-outs the groups get can be for anything from breathing difficulties through to cardiac arrests.
Hello, ambulance service.
For its part, the ambulance service says it really appreciates what the volunteers are doing.
They are available to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and can provide an immediate response within their locality. So far, we have an average of about a 5-minute response time from our first responders, and that's of enormous benefit to people suffering from cardiac problems.
You tell me where you are at the moment?
Lives have been saved by the scheme, although by its nature, it's difficult to say how many. But early intervention with oxygen, for example, has certainly prevented cardiac arrests. And for Wicklow's first responders, that's justification enough for the time and the energy they give.
And that first responder scheme may be introduced to other areas of the country in the near future.